Nobody can ignore today. The government has banned the broadcast of a controversial interview of one of Nirbhaya's rapists. The access to that man, who's now in Tihar Jail, Mukesh Singh, while he was in jail, has created a storm in Parliament this morning. Facing the heat, Home Minister Rajnath Singh promised a probe, but also said that the documentary filmmaker violated permission conditions. Here's our prime story tonight.
But I can assure you, we are going to investigate case of merit and ensure that anybody who has transgressed the penal laws is brought to book.
The filmmaker denying the charge.
I applied for permission in around May of 2013. The interview was done on the 8th or 10th of October.
The entire controversy taking on political colours. Rajnath Singh blaming the UPA regime for giving permission for the interview, but the former Home Minister distancing himself from the row. The BBC documentary, titled India's Daughter, shows Nirbhaya's rapist and murderer clearly remorseless about his heinous act. And even as the storm over airing the documentary rages on, bigger questions remain unanswered. Is government overreacting by banning the documentary? Will a mere ban change the mindset on the ground? With Kamaljit Singh Sandhu in Delhi, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
Well, the big question that we're asking this evening on News Today at 9, has the Delhi police and the Home Ministry simply overreacted on this entire Nirbhaya documentary? We'd like to bring our viewers up to speed on another bit of information that's just come in. The BBC has decided to actually advance the broadcast time for that documentary. You've got the Indian establishment going after the BBC, trying to get all entities of government to make sure that this documentary doesn't get broadcast. Well, the BBC has reacted by actually advancing the time. So it's going to be broadcast much earlier than its intended time on Sunday. In fact, 1:30 a.m. our time tomorrow is when it will be broadcast on BBC 4. All right, joining us this evening as we take this debate forward on whether the Delhi police and the Home Ministry have overreacted, we have with us a person who was perhaps more audible, more visible in Parliament today than anybody else. Javed Akhtar, Member of Parliament, is with us this evening. Meenakshi Lekhi, Member of Parliament and Senior Member of the BJP, is also with us. We have Dalip Tahil. He's an observer and a commentator, and he has a strong view on this issue. We're going to get to hear from him. Geeta Luthra is an advocate, and with me here in the studio, senior journalist and columnist Shefali Vasudev. Javed Akhtar, I'd like to come to you first. You said that it's important that a film like this actually comes out, and that the only reservations that people have are because they're embarrassed and frightened about the truths that this film actually says and what it suggests about us itself.
No, I have not said that. Please see the things in right perspective. I can totally understand the outrage and the anger and anguish of the people who are in the Parliament. I totally sympathize with that. But you see, I feel that their anger is misplaced. A documentary has made, if it has been made illegally, that is another issue. Actually, that is not the issue, basically.
Yeah, we're not talking about the illegality.
They are talking about the content.
Yes.
They are angry about the content. And what is the content? That rapist is interviewed, and he, in the most shameless manner, most inhuman manner, has tried to justify it. I have not seen the documentary, but this is all I have come to know about it. Now, if we show this documentary, that how a rapist and somebody who is worse than an animal, a man who is devoid of any decency, any etiquette, any humanity, is talking, so how it will reflect on our society? No, it won't. As a matter of fact, if people see this, they will know what is wrong. We are showing them what is wrong. This documentary is showing what is wrong. Point one. Point two, it is very important that it's so sad but true that there are many people in our society, not all but some, who consider themselves to be the custodians of morality, the protectors of culture and tradition and so on, and surprisingly and sadly, they share many views of this rapist. So this should be made obvious, and once it comes on record what the rapist
so you're saying it's a big
and
hypocrisy.
how he's justifying and how, listen to me, please don't interrupt me, that he is accusing the victim. And that is what many people do. They blame the women for it. So they should know that their thinking is the thinking of the rapist. That is why this documentary is important.
Okay, that's why the documentary is important. Javed Akhtar, since you said that I got what you said wrong, let me just say that, let me just read out verbatim for our viewers to set the record straight what you had said, and our viewers can decide if I've misquoted you. You said, अच्छा हुआ कि documentary बनी, अब पता चलेगा कितने लोग हैं जो उस rapist जैसे सोच रखते हैं. That's what you said. Dalip Tahil, why in your view is
I'm still saying that.
Yes, Dalip Tahil, why in your view is the government so upset? Dalip Tahil, why is the government, in your view, so upset, so so completely consumed with anger and agitation about this documentary and the contents of it, obsessing with the illegality of it, and also about the contents? Dalip Tahil?
I'm sorry, there was some interruption in that. Could you repeat the question, please?
Okay, I'll just try and get back to Dalip in just a moment. I think there might be a little bit of an audio problem. Let me put that question to Meenakshi Lekhi. Ms. Lekhi, you've got the Home Minister, the Delhi police, going after the illegality of this film. You've got many things that have been said in Parliament. Where do you personally stand on this, ma'am? As a representative of the BJP as well, you've got the government in an inordinate sort of funk as far as this film is concerned. I mean, why is it so upset?
I see there are a couple of things. One is the derogatory manner in which women have been treated, and it is as if all men in India think like this, and all rapists outside India are any different from this rapist. I think rapists, no matter which society they come from, think alike, wherever they may be, even in less religious and less prude societies. And considering that, I think BBC could have interviewed somebody from Ireland. There has been cases in Ireland. There have been cases in Richmond. There have been cases in London. There have been cases across the world. So my objection would be, when a particular permission has been sought for social cause and social purpose, cannot be made commercial. And making it commercial is violating the very terms
Ms.
of the
Lekhi, just as a matter of information, has anyone from the government watched the film?
And I'm sure they have. And the second thing, Ms. Arur, let me complete. It is not just the government, it is the sense of the entire Parliament. So the sense of the entire House was that this kind of depiction is harmful to the country, because such condemnable acts happen in all societies, happen across the world, and why target India all the time at any point?
The reason I'm asking, ma'am, is because Nirbhaya's parents are pretty emphatic. They want this film to be broadcast. They say that the message is important, it doesn't show India in a bad light, and it's important that this film be shown. Nirbhaya's parents.
No, I'm sorry. It is not about her parents who may have entered into some kind of a contract. It is about me as a country, because there is a constant quest from the journalists outside our country to find fault with the police system, to find fault with the judicial system, and I wish that this particular statement has set those quests at rest, because the search is that the police in this country has worked for the right cause, has caught the right culprit, the judiciary has convicted the right person, and Parliament has passed the right law, because the social system has the robustness to stand up to such crimes and do a course correction. So we have corrected the course wherever the faults were. We have tried to plug those faults. In any case, such things happen across the world. And why single out India?
Okay, I take your point. Shefali, I want to bring you in at this point. We've heard one of the points that Ms. Lekhi just made was that that this isn't something that just happens in India, but perhaps this film, sort of paints it or projects it like that. We still don't know how many people in the government have actually seen the film, because nobody has given us a straight answer about who's actually seen the film, including the INB minister, the Home Minister, the Delhi police, and all the other entities who've, sort of found it fit to actually pronounce their views on this film. Ms. Lekhi, I'll just come back to you. But, the sense that this is a defamation campaign of some kind, the general perception is, and I want to know where you stand on that, is how can a documentary about a rape be more of a defamation than the rape itself?
I disagree with Meenakshi Lekhi, with all due respect. First of all, there are prejudices against all kinds of convictions in all kinds of societies. Against cuss words, against pornography, against comedy, against Virat Kohli's girlfriend, and so against rape. This is a very serious issue. We have all right to dislike it, to be disillusioned by it, but to ban it without seeing it, I think is a completely half-baked action. And this idea of defamation, this is called India's daughter.
Right.
Number of documentaries have been made on India. Some are about its fame, and some are about the realities. This case was indeed an exceptional case that shook people all over the world.
Right.
Every part of the press, every media took it up as an exceptional case. Why can't we look at that case?
Right.
Why can't we have that as a reason to break open certain conversations in our drawing rooms between fathers and sons, between mothers and sons? Do you think like that?
Yeah.
I mean, not all families really talk like that.
Right.
This documentary could perhaps trigger off some questions.
Yeah.
Besides, I have a real problem about denouncing it without watching it. I think headlines today really capped it well yesterday with Rajdeep's discussion saying, watch it and decide for yourself. So I think that's where I stand.
Okay.
It shouldn't be banned, and I don't see it as a defamation at all.
Okay, so you don't see it as defamation at all. Ms. Lekhi, you wanted to clarify something? Quickly.
Yes, I want to clarify, because the terms of the agreement were that the unedited version will be submitted to the Government of India without being before being telecast. And unfortunately, I am wondering at the breach of that condition, which is not getting picked up not just by outside media but media within my country. And I think the contractual terms need to be respected by all. And especially when an interview has happened inside the jail, then unedited version should have been submitted to Government of India, and in response to 7th April 2014 notice by the government, the same has not been respected.
You said that the unedited version has not been submitted to the government. That's a technical point. Okay, yeah, you've made that point here. Dalit Tahil, I hope you can hear me now. That audio problem's been sorted out. Mr. Tahil, why, in your view, Mr. Tahil, is the government's sort of touchiness and sensitivity about this film? I'm not talking about the, the technical part or the illegality of not submitting the film or meeting all the permission conditions, but the touchiness about the content that has at least come out in the news reports, quotes of what Mukesh Singh has actually said. Is it justified, Mr. Tahil, the touchiness, the sensitivity within the government?
Well, actually, let me at the outset say that, the government, I don't want to comment. It's not my place to comment about the Home Ministry and about the police. If they've taken objections to this, they obviously are operating within their guidelines and their parameters. But I think they've definitely, in this situation, in fact, the ban is going to work counterproductive, because there is technology, there's the internet, there are all kinds of media today where this is going to go viral. And I think they're in denial, and they're playing it safe, because the fact remains that this statement made by the accused, which is such a horrendous and such a deplorable statement about the comment about women, I think this should be taken extremely seriously. And I think that people who are fighting fighting against crime on women need to understand the significance of this documentary being seen and depoliticize it as much as they can, and separate, and please focus on the content.
Absolutely.
Where a person has made a statement that is actually so derogatory and deplorable that I'm quite shocked that there is a reaction that people are trying to ban this film. This film should be seen by everybody. I think it is very important that women and men in India and everywhere see this film so that we can understand the psychology, which is a malaise, perhaps in India and the world over, of how, what the thinking of this particular individual is.
Okay, so two important points made by Dalit Tahil. A, that it's important that this film be watched. B, that by trying to suppress or ban this film, you're obviously in this technological age only ensuring that it actually gets a wider audience than if this controversy perhaps didn't actually happen. Javed Akhtar, I'm coming to you in just a moment. I want to bring in our final panelist, Geeta Luthra, in on this. Geeta, I'm sure you've noticed, the many things that have been said inside and outside Parliament. The Home Ministry has, asked channels not to broadcast. IMB Ministry has asked the channels not to broadcast this. You've got the Delhi police coming out and saying stuff. You've got reports suggesting that the Ministry of External Affairs has been, ordered to ensure that this this show doesn't get aired abroad. It's not just here in India. It's like a global sort of sensitivity. The government couldn't be more clear about the fact that it doesn't want this movie coming out at all. From a legal perspective, where does the government actually stand? Those restraining orders are out, but where does it stand? How do you assess that?
So, what I think is that firstly, we can't afford to be so sensitive. We should let people assess for themselves and condemn the statements of this man, Mukesh, for themselves. Why would we not trust in the public and understand that the public would find it abhorrible and condemnable and despicable? So the question then would be, how has this woman actually projected this accused? How has she projected the views of this accused? She is not glorifying them. She is actually saying that it is something which is abhorrible. And I don't see anything wrong then. And I don't see why we should be sensitive. Okay. Now, coming to the legal sections, I feel they brought in public order, they brought in public nuisance, they brought
also outraging the modesty of a woman.
Outraging the modesty of a woman. Now, you are outraging the modesty of a woman if you are actually looking at that woman with a different eye, then what the filmmaker seems to be saying. Right. So are you outraging the modesty? So Bandit Queen, in that case, it was about a real person. She was shown as being raped, and this whole controversy came in India. Yes. And even with, even with M.F. Hussain, the paintings, the question that's so the section.
So are you saying the government is legally on flimsy ground? Legally on flimsy ground, you're saying?
I think they're. I think they're on weak ground. Okay, they're on weak ground. I don't think it will. It's against unknown persons. Yes. It's not against this person, the filmmaker. It's against unknown persons. Okay. As far as a person doing a criminal offence within India, the IPC covers it.
Okay. Yeah, Javed Akhtar, you wanted to come in. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah. You see, if there is some breach of contract, legal contract, then obviously that is wrong. Even if you make a documentary on agriculture and breach the contract with the government, that is equally wrong. That is a different topic. I don't think basically the nation is discussing that. Yes. We are talking whether this absolutely right. Documentary is anti-India, showing India in bad light or not. The fact is that ultimately the documentary has no choice but to accept that the police very efficiently caught these people. The court has punished them. They are in the jail. They are not having fun. They are not
he's on death row.
Free citizens. So the law and order has worked in this country, and these people are there in the jail waiting for their ultimate punishment. Okay. Now, what this documentary is saying, that this is how obnoxious, how abominable, how deplorable a rapist is. I can totally understand if the defense lawyer of the rapist says that this documentary should be banned because it goes against the interest of my client. I am totally at sea to understand why other people who are against rapists don't want to show the world how abominable rapists are. I just can't understand it.
Before I come to you, Shefali, because I want to ask you about, the nature of the reaction and the way it's actually played out both inside and outside Parliament. But I have another specific question for Ms. Lekhi. And Ms. Lekhi, you can choose to respond to any of the comments you've just heard from our panelists and also answer the question that I have, which is an interesting point that Dalip Tahil made, which is obviously separate. But surely a government like yours, and you, ma'am, you're on social media, you know how the internet works. Hasn't it ever occurred, to the establishment that the manner in which the government has gone after this film has only ensured that it probably gets a much bigger audience than it perhaps ever could have, without this kind of hunt?
No, absolutely not, Shiv. No. I'm not defeating the purpose. I'm asserting myself, and I think government hurt itself little more than it has done so far. For the simple reason, this is the sense of the house, both houses and inside the Parliament. And what Parliament passes, we have to obey as a government, because government is of the people, and my audience is not the BBC and the world outside, but my audience is how India is projected and portrayed. Now, when I am asking a simple question, that a white man committing a similar crime on a 15-year-old or a 13-year-old, does he have a different thought process than these criminals who are behind bars in this case? And BBC chooses to portray these people. Under these circumstances, all these abhorrible crimes across the world, no matter where they are happening, need to be condemned. And while you are condemning this act in India, you are excluding India as if India is unsafe for other people to tread.
But ma'am, are you trying to say that documentaries only portray Indian crimes and not crimes abroad? They're unfair to India. Is that what you're saying?
That is exactly what I'm trying to communicate.
But then nobody from your government has watched the film, ma'am.
Richmond. I'm sorry, but how will my government watch the film when the contract terms are being breached and nobody is even chosen to submit the copy of the film?
But then your government has also spoken out about the contents of the film.
Will you please allow me?
Yes.
The content of the film is what is being shown in the media otherwise.
Correct. So it's only based on that.
If they try and Shiv, you are not letting me complete
please go ahead. Please complete your point.
What I wish to communicate. It is a very nuanced discussion, and let me make that nuanced difference to the entire discussion.
Yes, complete your point.
The nuanced discussion and the difference that I'm trying to communicate is that in Richmond, a similar case happened. The people of that particular crime are housed somewhere in UK. Could BBC not interview those people? And are these criminals in their head any different from Indian criminals? Answer is quite clearly no. Whether it's Paris, it's New York, or it's London, criminals who commit such crimes have the same mindset about women and children. And that is what needs to be communicated. Unfortunately, the same does not get communicated at an international fora. Wherever I have gone, I was discussing about social media and people kept repeating about Nirbhaya. And I ultimately had to get up and say, I'm thankful to all of you to remember that.
Ma'am, are you saying there's a racism involved here? Is it a racism? Is it a racism involved here?
I won't call it,
or a prejudice against India, because that's what you appear to be saying.
There's a prejudice against India.
Okay.
There is definitely an undertone of prejudice against India.
Okay.
And when there is a violation of a contract term, I have every business to invoke those terms, especially when something has been recorded for social purpose and not commercial purpose.
Okay, Shefali, you want to come in?
And if there is a commercial exploitation of such a tragedy, I as a government have to act on behalf of my parliament and the people's voice.
Prejudice against India, the possibility of defamation. Shefali, also the visceral nature of the responses to this entire thing, it's split between the technicality of not being shown the raw footage and also, as Meenakshi Lekhi herself said, going by what the media has said about this documentary. Nobody's actually seen the entire film. We understand it's going to be actually broadcast tonight. What do you think? What do you think of what...
breach of contract with the Home Ministry and between the Home Ministry and the filmmaker is one thing.
Yeah.
We can't touch it until we know all the facts.
Yeah. That's the government's business.
That's the government business. As far as Meenakshi Lekhi's argument that is the rapist mind similar or different all across the world? I think there are similarities and then there are cultural differences.
Yeah.
And I think there could be a large interest in the psychological understanding of the rapist mind to understand these cultural differences. In fact, when this particular rape case had happened, a lot of fora on television and otherwise had brought up the problem of the predatory male in the Indian slums.
Right.
It is a peculiar problem. It is not like France or like New York or like Richmond. So while the rapist in his psychology might be same, that he wants to punish and overpower the woman, the cultural differences do create the finer nuanced differences in crimes.
Yes.
And in fact, listening to what Adwin, the filmmaker, has to say and how she has worked around
you say it's important to hear
is
what
important
they
to
have to
understand.
Okay.
This society.
Yeah.
What does the rapist, the Indian rapist, the predatory slum inside the urban milieu have to think? I don't think we are going to take Mukesh Singh's words for what women should wear or whether they should go out at 9 o'clock.
Okay.
But we may be able to understand what's going on and thus actually combat the problem in a more wholesome way. That's what women need to do.
Yeah. Also, you know, one of the points that Meenakshi Lekhi made just now, which hasn't been made, you know, so far, at least in as direct a manner by anyone in government, about how, you know, this also, you know, sort of demonstrates a prejudice perhaps against India. Javed Akhtar, would you like to comment on that? Is this, you know, does the making of this documentary somehow demonstrate a prejudice against India?
I'll answer, but please give me some time.
Yes.
First of all, I totally agree with Meenakshi ji that this was not only the government, but it was the sense of the house. Opposition, all the parties were saying the same thing. As a matter of fact, they were pressurizing the government to do more.
Right.
And I disagree with the government and disagree with the opposition. I don't agree with these people who are saying, all of them are saying that almost the same thing.
Yes.
But I don't agree. First of all, it is wrong that only a documentary has been made about this particular case and never a criminal has been documented before. They have made documentaries on Manson family. So, they have made so many documentaries about Son of Sam. There have been documentaries about Jack the Ripper, and they still do research and write books on Jack the Ripper and so on.
Yes.
So, first of all, let's not get paranoid that everything is being done because they want to defame us. Why would they want to defame us? What will they gain out of it? First of all, point one. Point two, the serious thing is this, that why are we defending the rapist when a documentary is exposing his barbarism, his inhuman attitudes, his crudity, his vulgarity? Why you are trying to cover it? Why you don't want to to see? Tomorrow, if you are saying that this is defaming, then tomorrow you may ask the rape news should not come in newspapers or on TV because that will defame the country. Would you say that?
Absolutely.
And by the way, let me make one more point. The fact is that this is not just another rape case. Every rape case is heinous, but our whole nation has reacted to this particular case. Perhaps this was the last straw on the camel's back.
Yeah.
So the magnitude of the reaction was so big.
And that's why this documentary has been made.
That somebody will make documentary of this.
Dalit Tahil, you know, I want to quickly bring in Dalit Tahil before I come back to you, Ms. Lekhi, because I know you want to respond to that direct comment.
Just
Can
respond to me.
Ms. Lekhi, with your permission, just a quick quick comment from Dalit Tahil on precisely the point that you made, and then you can give a comprehensive response to both. Dalit Tahil, Meenakshi Lekhi says, you know, possibility of prejudice against India. Javed Akhtar says there's no reason, you know, for someone to sort of cherry pick this particular issue. This is an issue that, you know, went across the world. It horrified people the world over. What do you think?
I understand. Yes, I hear you. I hear you. And this is exactly where I have a lot of concern, is that when an issue like this arises, where, as Javed Saab said very clearly, this is a documentary which shows an act of depravity against women,
right?
And already it is being linked. It is being linked to prejudices and that people outside this country have a prejudice against India. Yes, they may have. And it's a possibility that in many cases there is a prejudice in certain areas.
Right, okay.
But how is it relevant to this documentary baffles me. It actually beggars belief that here's a documentary which actually shows that this is a barbaric act and supports women and actually is ammunition and support to women and everybody who is fighting crime against women. I think this is very important point, and I really think it should be separated from all the political nuances that this has taken on. And I mean, all respect to Mrs. Lekhi, and she has her point of view, and I'm absolutely respecting that. But can she please put on another hat for today and please understand in some way as to what this documentary actually is giving as a support system to women who are fighting against crime and men who are fighting against crime against women.
Okay,
so please try and separate this and deal with the content.
Yeah. Meenakshi Lekhi, Javed Akhtar says...
Here's a person who says... Yes. Who has said the most deplorable thing on the documentary.
Okay. Point taken, Dalit Tahil. Meenakshi Lekhi, Javed Akhtar says, where is the reason to be paranoid about a film of this kind? That's a direct statement from Javed Akhtar.
I'll tell you where it is, and I will also tell what Ms. Valentine is trying to communicate, that neither on the panel has seen the documentary, and none of us know what exactly are the contents.
Correct.
And people who were supposed to provide us with the content have chosen not to provide us. People who were supposed to show it as a social cause have chosen to make a commercial capital out of it. Where do we draw the line? Number one. Number two, that what the content are, we really don't know. We are all trying to see only this statement so that sympathy is garnered around that, oh look, he for she, and I constantly believe that all men in India are not like Mukesh Singh. In fact, most men abhor people like Mukesh Singh. But the impression, if the movie in its total content leaves an impression that this is a perverted Indian society, this is how men look at women. So stop visiting India and as if everywhere else in the world men are any different than the men on this piece of earth which is called India. The third point is...
So you're saying it's pure propaganda and defamation.
Criminals...
That's the point you're making, ma'am.
Exact. Not just defamation. I am saying, how can a responsible telecast system not obey the words they have given to another government? Can that be a diplomatic move?
So you say that itself is suspicious?
Are you supposed...
That is the basis of your suspicion.
Is everything about. Yes, my suspicion is that this country has acted very robustly and very correctly to set systems in place post Nirbhaya. There was an amendment of the law and moved and accepted by all parties unanimously. People of this country got together at India Gate, protested against such an act, and wanted system to respond and change, and system did respond and change. So mine is a very vibrant society. Now if you try and depict that society as a perverted society, I as a government have the responsibility
all of this without seeing the film is likely
that such depiction does not. Exactly my point. So please show me the film. Why are you not showing me the film?
The question that some people are asking, and I admit here that this panel is for against one in terms of whether the film should be shown or not. But Ms. Lekhi, some people are saying, why so much anguish? Why such a robust response without the film actually having been seen? But you say that the fact that those technicalities and the commitments given, the permission conditions have not been met, that itself raises certain suspicions about the contents of the film. Geeta Luthra, you say that the government is on flimsy ground, legally, as it tries to actually fight this film. Just before this broadcast began, I don't know if our panelists know, the BBC has actually announced that forget about not broadcasting the film, they're actually advancing the time of broadcast. So it's actually going to be broadcast tonight, 1:30 a.m. on BBC 4. So the BBC is not playing ball. And here in India, you've got the Home Ministry activating the External Affairs Ministry.
To hoots to your government. It's basically saying that.
Exactly, ma'am.
And you think that is a correct move? You respect that? I don't think any Indian can respect that.
Ma'am, Ms. Lekhi, I want to tell you that I am taking no positions on this. I'm only asking the questions here. No, Geeta Luthra, the BBC...
Meenakshi, first and foremost, if I may just come in.
Yes.
First and foremost, a breach of contract will not result in filing an FIR and criminal cases. And the FIR is not against BBC. It's not even against the...
So you're saying it is an overreaction? Geeta Luthra, you're saying it is an overreaction?
Of women in poor light
is against unknown
itself
persons. Just a minute.
Yes.
This entire Nirbhaya case was followed worldwide. So when you are asking the question, why was this covered? I can tell you, it was covered because the whole world was watching India.
Geeta Luthra, on the specific question,
an exemplary job.
On the specific question of the BBC actually deciding to show this film tonight.
Identical case happened in New York. Are you even aware of that?
Meenakshi Lekhi,
Just 2 days before this
I'm almost out of time.
in Delhi.
Yeah, okay, we've gone through that point.
Because they choose not to publicize it.
Sorry.
We've gone through that point.
No, it means
we've gone through that point.
Geeta Luthra,
quickly finish your point, and then I want to quickly wrap up.
Meenakshi, there'll be hundreds of rapes all over the world. The statistics are that the rapes in the US are as many or even more than the rapes in India. But that's not the issue.
So rape capital is not New Delhi, it happens to be New York. How many people know this? How many people know Ireland has a 10.8%?
I'm sorry.
Norway has 27.9%.
So to address,
why can't this be the argument? You are making Delhi as the rape capital across the world.
Our viewers can't hear either of you.
Not all men in this country are perverts. I think most men are not.
Okay.
Let me
we're almost completely out of time. Yeah, okay. Very quickly make your point, Geeta.
Thank you very much.
Geeta, very quick point that I want to bring in Javed Akhtar.
And the percentage of rapes
may I say something?
Yes, sir. In a moment. Yes. Geeta, quickly finish your point.
May I say something? One sentence. As a matter of fact, if you see the kind of documentaries are made in Europe and in USA.
Okay. Both points.
Please listen to me.
They are made for all countries.
May I say something?
We had Jessica Lal, who killed Jessica. We had the Billa Ranga case.
Okay. Javed Akhtar, go ahead. Quickly make your point.
Hello.
Yes. Okay, Geeta, point taken. Javed Akhtar, quickly make your point, and then I want to end with Meenakshi Lekhi. Yeah.
I'll make a quick remark. Meenakshi ji, the kind of documentaries are made in America or in Europe, you can't even imagine such documentaries being made in India, and establishment will allow them. You have seen more documentary about 9/11 Fahrenheit or Chico or about Scottsboro boys case. I mean, the kind of criticism that society, whether Europe or USA, does of their own establishment or their society, you can't imagine such kind of documentary cannot be made in India.
Lekhi, 20
so don't
seconds.
say that they don't look at themselves.
Okay, Meenakshi Lekhi, I'm going to give you the last word on this because, as I said, it was 4 against 1. But I want your specific response, ma'am, because you've made your other points pretty comprehensively on the BBC now deciding to broadcast tonight. You say that's that's almost like a defiance against the government. What's the government's next step going to be? How is India going to respond to this now? Are you going to see this as defiance?
I am not aware how. Of course, this is defiance, and I don't know what government of India is going to do, but I don't respect people who defy other countries' laws and who don't obey their own commitments to other countries. And definitely people who breach the contract, because legal terms are very relevant and legal terms are important as a safeguard. So people who don't respect the safeguards are not to be respected by me, and I have, as a country, lodged my protest through the Parliament of India.
All right. So prejudice against the country, defamation, and the criticism is that there is paranoia, but this is also something that Meenakshi Lekhi says is an act of defiance by the BBC. We'll see how they react. 1:30 AM, not very far away, but that's when it's going to be broadcast on BBC4. Meenakshi Lekhi, Javed Akhtar, Dalit Tahil, Shefali Vasudev, and Geeta Luthra. Appreciate you, ladies and gentlemen, joining us on the debate on News Today at 9 this evening. Thanks so much.